Okay, so let's get right to this because something doesn't make sense right now and it's really bothering me. There's a lot of things happening. As you know, Elon Musk, through the DOGE, requested from the highest levels of the SSA. Notice how I'm speaking. I want to get the facts perfect on this. Specifically from Commissioner King, who was put in for less than a month by President Trump, who had a huge, long period of working with the SSA, worked from the bottom all the way to the top. A really good pick. Anyway, this really good pick as a commissioner put her entire career on the line to stop Elon from getting a special data set. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Why? He already had access to all the Treasury data, which is most of the data related to Social Security payments. So why would she have to put her actual career on the line to stop him from a particular, very, very protected data set? So she steps down Sunday. Not even Monday, not Tuesday, which is the day after the holiday, but Sunday. Okay. Then we have basically Trump having to pick a new commissioner for the SSA, which that individual today released an official news release statement. Now, what you should be thinking is, why are we getting swapped out commissioners in such a short period of time? That doesn't really happen with the SSA ever, period. So the next thing you have to be wondering is, okay, are Elon's numbers correct when it comes to how much fraud there is? Well, if Elon can't get access to the full system of who received what checks when, he's never going to fully know, and we're never going to fully know. The counter argument to that is people don't want their information sent to Elon's DOGE team. So let me read to you specifically this news release from the brand new commissioner that was released today. But I want you to keep two things in mind when I read this to you, because it's incredibly important. Number one, everybody is spicy about what's going on with Social Security fraud. I'm just going to give you the extreme options here. You have the extreme, super multicolored hair, mostly purple hair individuals who are screaming into their microphones and cameras about how much they hate Trump and Elon and things like that. They're talking about how Elon screwed everything up. Then you've got the other people on the right side, right, who feel that basically Elon doesn't have all the information. He can't fully do his job. They can't find all the fraud unless he has full access to the program data. Okay, so Trump's now stuck with people getting fired up about all of this. Trump also wants to keep people happy. So now he's talking about a DOGE form of a stimulus, which could be potentially $40, $50, or it could be $5,000. We don't know because we don't know how bad the fraud is. We don't know how many jobs they're going to cut. We don't know. He's talking about the 20% option that would be given back to the American people as a healing agent to go ahead and make you feel whole again. And we're going to do a video specifically on the DOGE stimulus, if you will. So he's got to keep people calm. But to be very fair, right, the only way he can bring the temperature of the nation down is to ultimately get done with the actual analysis. Now, we've talked in prior videos that the government and the American people, all right, so look, most American people have never been an employer. Most American people have never been an executive. Most American people have never been a high-level manager. Most American people have never worked in those positions inside a private large corporation. As a result, the grand majority, 99.999% of Americans, have no effing clue how an actual audit of a corporation works. But now you do, because you're seeing it. What they're doing with Elon is just like what they do with private corporations. They bring in a team of people. They bring in programmers. They bring in, people who have a history of audit. What are the steps that occur? And then, of course, you have accountants, forensic accountants, etc. You even have criminal attorneys that are part of the investigation. And they go through everything. And they figure out, and then they go ahead and talk to the CEO, give the CEO updates, and create a report. That's how it's done. For some reason, and the reason is because Americans, they just don't have that experience. Everybody's frothing up up this crazy hurricane tornado of shit. And everybody's minds are going all over the place, which makes it difficult for somebody who likes to report in the middle what's actually going on. Because I get people screaming at me and threatening me with purple hair throughout the day while I'm working with the homeless, the people they claim to actually love and want to help. Yet I don't see any of them there at the homeless facility. So the point I'm getting at, I'm a little cranky about it because we had calls today, people just screaming into the phone. It was absolute insanity. The point I'm getting at that I hope you understand is that Trump is trying to bring the temperature down of the American people a bit while still making things make sense for where he's finding fraud and how he's going to save money. He doesn't want America to boil over because when people are upset, they tend to vote out the politicians that made them upset. Even if they're happy about what's going on, too much emotion and the politicians have to leave. Okay. Another thing that you have to keep in mind is that the SSA has multiple coding systems that they use. Multiple, how do I put it? Multiple base operating systems. You know, like how one computer will have an operating system like a Mac, and then another one will have Linux, and another one will have PCs, right? And they all have a different coding system. It's the same with websites. Some websites use one coding system, Joomla. Some use another, WordPress. They all use different OSs, although those OSs have to talk to the main internet source system. So that's the real core, okay, operating system. So what you have to understand with that situation is that the date used for these different coding systems, you know, month, day, year, is different. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that we had an issue with this at, 2000, the Y2K thing. We've also had issues with this in 2008. We've also had issues with this in 2020. The point is that they all use different systems for the date system. So is Elon going to be wrong, likely on some of these super elderly people, 115-year-olds old, 112-year-olds, 150-year-olds? Probably. But he's probably going to find some stuff that also isn't correct. Now, some of you have experiences where you've seen fraud with Social Security benefits. I see it in the comments. I see you talking about how you've seen fraud. Yeah, I too know a USPS person who delivers checks to empty houses. I know it's happening. I get it. I see your comments. I understand. I know it too. But they have to complete the cycle and finish the review to create the report to tell us what's actually going on. If they don't, we'll never know. We'll never know. And we will probably never actually do a full review again, which is far worse. We've come this far. To not do that little bit extra rest, very big problem. Now that you understand all of that, now we can talk about the official Social Security release from the Mark Hinkle press office, Wednesday, February 19, 2025, for immediate release from the Social Security Administration. Statement from Lee Dudek, acting commissioner, about commitment to agency transparency and protecting benefit and information. Remember, he was in charge of the fraud units at the SSA, which is way lower than the executive units. And now he's being put all the way up here because basically Trump, through Elon, asked Michelle King to step down. So he's putting in Lee Dudek as the new commissioner, and the new commissioner that's coming in is going to go ahead and assist with this fraud review. And as a result of that, he's doing this until Frank Bisignano comes in, because Frank Bisignano, when he comes in, they need to have any fraud that exists cleaned up. They need to have any fraud that exists cleared up, because he has to put in the systems that are used in the private industry to hyper automate a lot of the systems in the SSA, because the SSA has far too many government operating systems working to do a simple job. They need it all in one operating system. I know people are upset about that idea, but also 99.99% of Americans have no clue about how things are programmed and how different operating systems can be. And it frustrates me, but I love you all, especially those who have purple hair and those who yell at me about who God actually is. I love both of you. I really do. Pam, thank you for the $19.99 donation. Let me put a little heart on there. Buy Sweetie something special. Poor baby has a lot going on lately. She does. Sweetie is actually Shadow's right there. Sweetie's right over here. She has been getting steak every single day. I go over to BJ's Wholesale. I buy the I forget what the steaks are called, but they have like the fat right on the outside. I put them in my little ninja cooker or whatever it's called, the little ninja oven, and basically I make her steak all the time because they're my kids. Like I don't have kids. I don't have a personal life. You know what I mean? It's 1:01 a.m. and here I am. So those are my babies. Those are my little chubby fluffs. Ashley B, thank you for the $20 donation. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Super, super thank you. And I really, really appreciate it. So, all right. Let me go through this real quick. The animations are incredible now. I remember when they first started the animations, they were like, they were okay, but now they're like, they've got hair and stars and three-dimensional star movement. They're incredible now. Wow. All right, so here's the actual statement from the brand new commissioner that is replacing the commissioner that we had for less than a month that was put in originally by Trump. Something's going on. All right. Quote, I'm honored and humbled to be appointed Social Security's acting commissioner pending Senate confirmation of Frank Bisignano to be the SSA's next commissioner. And, Wikipedia is rushing to like get his stuff up there. I accepted the position because I strongly believe in the agency's mission and the hardworking and dedicated employees who serve America. And they really are, because the people who are still working for the SSA, they're hanging in there. They are hanging in there. Openness, transparency, and accountability are tenets of good government, and demonstrating them begins with me. To that end, I want to share several points to reassure the public and our employees that I will continue SSA's history of transparency and protecting benefits and information. All right, so what he's saying is he's going to be transparent. In other words, he's going to release all the stuff to Elon that Elon needs to complete the investigation because he's the new pick that's replacing the person who wouldn't release it. Openness, same gig. It's going to be open so that they can do the investigation. Accountability. They need accountability because they want to make sure they're not paying people who are not currently alive, or some user that has to pay their dealer who basically, takes their check, hands it over to the dealer, yada, yada. They got to make sure that they're accountable for how these benefits are created, what's the distribution process, etc. And which is when, just to be clear, I know some of you are saying, no, the SSA is perfect. The SSA is absolutely perfect. Then why would they release an emergency message today? An emergency message today about how to, here's the title, deal with failure to receive a check/payment, Title II, Title 16, POMS full transmittal, instructions for how to deal with it. They updated all the instructions on what to do with these special types of payments that have an issue where basically there's a failure to receive. Why would they release today an emergency internal message at the SSA about failure to receive checks and what the local field offices and other personnel should do with them? So we're going to go through that in a little bit. All right. I've experienced firsthand the impact that Social Security benefits have on families' lives. They're crucial. Literally, people would be homeless without them. Since joining SSA in 2009, I've had the opportunity to work across multiple parts of SSA, and especially appreciated my experiences working alongside frontline employees in the Cambridge, Massachusetts field office. Okay. So he's been working there a long time, not as much as the prior commissioner, but there it is. Transparency begins with me. My first call as acting commissioner was to our Office of Inspector General, right? That's the group that reviews and audits, etc. The SSA. They're the attorneys, they're the secret police that work for the SSA. To provide them an opportunity to oversee and review any and all agency activities, including my actions past, present, and future. So what he's saying is, OIG, investigate me. Go for it. Give me a clear bill of health based on your industry standards. Now, he's also led the fraud system, so they're going to give him, very likely, a clean bill of health. That's why he's doing it. Also, to be very fair, he's doing this because he's saying OIG has to work in tandem with DOGE. Because OIG is supposed to be the group that has been finding and pushing the SSA to deal with the fraud and the waste to begin with. Now, is OIG bad? No, they've done a great job. Their reports, 2023, they had a huge report on the types of fraud and waste and all this kinds of stuff, how much they would actually save at the SSA if they just dealt with some of these things. So when Elon comes out, not all of this is brand new. Some of this goes back to 2015. Some of this goes back to 2023. You have to understand, this isn't, Elon just has a pedestal and he gets to go ahead and deliver information from that soapbox. But OIG has been finding this stuff for a long time. And due to lack of resources, in other words, the federal government not paying enough to the SSA to administer the benefits and check on fraud, due to a lack of having enough money to keep the agency doing what it should be doing, it hasn't been able to fix a lot of the fraud issues and waste issues that they have. It's frustrating. Next. All right. So transparency begins with me. He gives them the right to go ahead and examine him. Next sentence. I trust in the people to be informed, and I'm making available my agency personnel and performance files to the OIG. All right. Right there is a massive, massive sentence, because right there, I'm going to read to you again. He is saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to make the whole shebang available so that OIG, and he's pulling the heat and the excitement away from DOGE, and he's putting it back on OIG, right? Which is the group that's supposed to go ahead and investigate the SSA over and over and over for payments, over and over for fraud, etc. Right? So I am opening, so people to be informed, I am making available my agency personnel and performance files to the OIG. My agency personnel and performance files to the OIG. Now, that broad statement means what he's done in the past and also what he's going to be doing in the future. And as commissioner of the SSA, that means the stuff, the package, the whole program, yada, yada. OIG doesn't have enough personnel to go through it all, to be fair. So, it's good. This is a good step, because you might be wondering, have any of you sat back and wondered why OIG did not have full access to begin with? Why the new commissioner that replaced the old commissioner that wouldn't hand over files to DOGE, who then got quasi-fired, but she stepped down on Sunday, why the new commissioner has to come in and say, yeah, now I'm going to give full access of my stuff, of my personnel, my agency, and performance files to OIG. Why did we have to wait until this guy got in? What is so secretive about that file, that program, that list of people getting payments, that she could not, would not, that she would give up her entire career of decades and decades working for the SSA so that Elon couldn't get it? Can anybody explain to me why this is happening in a way that isn't blaringly obvious that something was going on here? Quote, the law matters and we will follow it. I have invited the Government Accountability Office, okay, the GAO, the nonpartisan and independent agency that works for Congress, to observe how we conduct agency business. So in other words, what he's saying is the SSA will be completely, fully transparent to all the investigators within the SSA, within the federal government as well. Now, you notice he hasn't mentioned DOGE yet. He's about to. Good government means finding ways to do better. The Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, is a critical part of President Trump's commitment to identifying fraud, waste, abuse, and better ways for the government to function to support its people. I want to be very clear about the DOGE personnel who are now working at Social Security. Okay, so a lot of you thought that DOGE was separate and they were, over there. No, there are DOGE people working inside these agencies, doing accounting, doing reviewing, doing finding, doing this, doing that. Okay, so reading it to you again, he says, I want to be very clear about the DOGE personnel who are now working at Social Security. Number one, our continuing priority is paying beneficiaries the right amount at the right time. It's always been that. That's like their catchphrase. That's their thing. Right amount, right time. And providing other critical services people rely on from us. That's good. You want that. You want the money and you want the services. The services have been pretty shitty over the past couple of years. I'm not going to go into the reason why, but let's just say Biden was not the best when it comes to pushing for more funding for the Social Security Administration. He would always put a thing in there saying, we want to shoot for this. And then anytime a bill would come up, it either wouldn't make it past the committees, or if it made it to real committee communications, like it might happen, first round, shit's out. Second round, other stuff's in. Social Security just was not a priority over, Trump's presidency, Biden's presidency. It just wasn't. Okay. Next one. DOGE personnel cannot make changes to agency systems, benefit payments, or other information. They only have read access. All right. Some of you are a little confused as to read access. Some of you are totally fine with what it means. Read access means they cannot change anything in the data sets that they have. They can only read it. They can't write anything in. They can't code some change in. They can only read it. Some of you will say, well, that's too much. They have all my info. All your info was stolen for the most part of 270 something million people by basically hackers hacking a government program that scans your face and puts it into a database from images that are found online and through camera systems. Well, they got hacked and they leaked, and a chunk of the social security numbers and your info ended up on the dark web, which, some people still have. So just to be fair, you know what I mean? Biden put out 2 executive orders that I saw about protecting the privacy rights of the information of the U.S. citizen. Unfortunately, the government failed Biden on that. Okay. Next one. DOGE personnel do not have access to data related to a court-ordered temporary restraining order, current or future. Next one. DOGE personnel must follow the law, and if they violate the law, they will be referred to the Department of Justice for possible prosecutions. So he's saying all these things that we're hearing from people screaming that, they're doing this or doing that, or they're doing this, they're doing that they will prosecute them. Now, people don't have trust in that because it's a Republican DOGE, it's a Republican commissioner, it's a Republican this, that. You'll notice, though, one thing that hasn't been filled at this point is the position of Office of Inspector General. And you need those 2 people to successfully control the Social Security Administration. You need the person at the top, and then you need the person who investigates what's happening in the SSA. And that's the OIG, the Inspector General position. Once Trump has the commissioner and the OIG, he will control the flow and the review of the Social Security Administration. Next thing. I also want to acknowledge recent reporting about the number of people older than age 100 who may be receiving benefits from Social Security. The reported data are people in our records with a Social Security number who do not have a date of death associated with their record. These individuals are not necessarily receiving benefits. Now, as an attorney, as a critical thinker as you are, when you read the sentence, these individuals are not necessarily receiving benefits. That is not a definitive statement that said, and let me give you the options here. It could have said these individuals are not receiving benefits. That would mean none of them are over 100. He didn't say that. He didn't say these individuals, well, some of them aren't receiving benefits. No, he used phrasing that is going to slide right through the average American's ear out the other side and make them feel good. Let me read it to you one more time. These individuals are not necessarily receiving benefits. He had to put it that way because obviously there are people over 100 who are receiving benefits. The whole point here is there, I'm sure, are people that are receiving that should not be receiving. And back, in the records from OIG and back in the records from what was repeated in 2015 by the legacy news stations, we know that there's a chunk of people who some of them are improperly receiving Social Security benefits and they're no longer around. We also know that there's a group of that chunk where people continue to claim earnings for those people. So in other words, you have a very old person, and somehow on those tax returns, those people keep having earnings attributed to them, even though they're way too old to be working a standard job. It's not investment income, it's regular income. I mean, sure, they have some investment income in there, but that's a problem. That's fraud. All right. Unless a 105-year-old, 110-year-old, or whatever, who's out there, basically shoveling, who's out there with an excavator, who's out there doing legal briefs, who's out there, giving medical opinions, who's out there giving speeches. I don't know about you, but I don't know that many people giving speeches at 100 years old. Okay. I just don't. Quote, I also want to acknowledge recent reporting about the number of people, right? So these individuals are not necessarily receiving benefits. He had to say that because people were saying, oh, all 6.5 million of these 112-year-olds are getting a check. They're not. That's not how finding fraud works. You know, they're finding one here, a bunch of people go by, they're okay. One here, a bunch of people go by, one here. That's how that works. Fraud is a detail by detail. Who's this check being paid to? Who's actually collecting it? Just think about it for a moment. Let's say a check is being paid to a 112-year-old, right? And we don't have any proof that the 112-year-old is alive. But yet magically, these sheets that they require for the person to submit, say, you know, oh, I'm here, I'm alive. They do calls. Oh, I'm alive. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, cool. Fine. Why is that person no longer using their Medicare? Where is that person nowadays? And how often are they going to the hospital? Anybody? All right. I am confident that with DOGE's help and the commitment of our executive team and workforce, that the Social Security will continue to deliver for the American people. So, for all of you who are sitting there going, is DOGE going to get full access to the Social Security files? Yes. Why? Because the other commissioner that was holding on to and not allowing DOGE to release a last data set that was held by the commissioner at the highest level of the SSA, she stepped down on decades and decades and decades of service with the SSA to go ahead and try and block Trump and DOGE from reviewing that data. Do we know what's in the data? We have no clue. But something's not right here for somebody who's worked with the SSA for that many decades to step down as a result of it. Now, with that said, we have a new commissioner. The new commissioner is going to work with DOGE. Some people will try to sue, right, the SSA for release of this information. They will sue. Obviously, the smart thing to do is to sue in California, New York, stuff like that, to try and have a judge restrict access to this information. They're going to do that. I think they're still going to get the information. It's still going to roll forward. Now, as a result of that, I want to take a moment. I want to explain to you what was released today. An emergency release notification of an internal document from the SSA about how they handle basically failure to receive check payments. Why would they need to update that? Why would they need to make that very clear as to what's going to be happening in the future unless there was clearly people doing Social Security check fraud? You know, because remember, they take those things, they get them cash. Nobody knows, nobody sees. You know, it is what it is. All right. Background. This transmittal, just if you're wondering, if you want to look it up, it is GN02406 TN129. Again, GN02406 TN129. All right. This transmittal provides guidance for the non-receipt process, payment status requests, and the C-stop process. We updated the instructions for clarity and made no change in policy. So in other words, it's the same policy. They just wanted to clarify and make things a little bit more straightforward so that if there's a bunch of checks that seem to have some issues getting to their intended recipients in the future, that the local field office has a good schematic on what to do. Okay, summary of changes. So processing reports of non-receipt loss, theft, or destruction of payments, checks due and not due. Throughout this section, we replace non-receipt with non-receipt and capitalized title, blah, 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 blah. And they go through all of the verbiage and diction changes that they did. We created the subsection with title when person receives the original and courtesy disbursement of or replacement check. We added the potential double check negotiation procedures. We created this subsection with title 16, recurring check cash courtesy check return. We added procedures for preventing the repeated reissue of a type 2E underpayment check. A note labeled important previously found in B7 is now edited and included in this section. We created this subsection with title when to accept a report of non-receipt for non-recurring checks. We added the step action chart. They're doing a lot of that now where they add charts of like, if you do this, then this. If this happens, then do this. So I think it's good because the field office then has like direct specific actions that they're supposed to take. We changed the title procedure for processing reports of non-receipt. We added step action chart. Step action chart includes information found previously in section B7. Remove section B1 through B7 and created subsection 3 through H to house this information for clarity. What do you need to know? They've better outlined the system that their local field office and procedural people should be using when it comes to these checks, when they're not received, when they accidentally send out 2 checks when they're only supposed to send out 1 check. They're getting very, very specific with what their employees need to do with that. This should be good evidence to you that the SSA is very aware that there may be checks that are problematic in the future, and they better get their bleep together on how to process that internally. So, in other words, I think that there's something bigger going on. I want to know, but I will never know specifically what is on that data set hard drive. That a woman who worked for, and let me find out the exact date. Let me tell you exactly. Okay, so Michelle King, right? SSA. Let me find real quick I don't even know if I can find her thing on the SSA anymore because they probably pulled it down. Acting Commissioner Michelle King. Yeah, they pulled it down. It's already gone. It's already gone. It's done. It's gone. They already pulled her down. She's done. Out. Let me see if I worked for SSA for how long. Let's see if we can just get a little understanding here. Has worked for 30 years. 30 years. Okay. Let me just make sure this is absolutely correct. Let me, okay, yeah, 30 years in the agency that oversees, yeah. So she spent 3 decades. And in less than a month, DOGE came to her and said, we want this grouping of data. And this grouping of data was different than what they had already had from basically, the IRS and things like that. And she, after 30 years of service with less than 30 days of being commissioner, she stepped down. There's something on that would cause a 30-year veteran of the SSA to step down and get the F away from it. Just let that sink in for a moment. And then the new commissioner that they're bringing in isn't even a traditional executive, which is what they always do, or a political person like Martin O'Malley was. The new person that they're bringing in is a lower level individual that was part of the fraud division. In other words, they said, we're handpicking a fraud person who studies fraud, knows fraud, and can actually work with DOGE to get the system working better. Now, some of you absolutely hate Elon. I get it. You don't need to call me at the law firm during the day to tell me that. I get it. All right. Especially when I'm working literally with the homeless, which, by the way, to the people who think they're so high and goddamn mighty, which really pisses me off. No offense, but and they ruined liberal. Like, I used to think of myself as an in the middle liberal person who fights for the rights of the poor, the low income, and basically the homeless. Now liberals being used for super hardcore extremist, left, where it's the white men are evil and how could they do this? And it's disgusting. It's just disgusting. They don't do what they preach. They don't work with the homeless and help the low income like they preach. I had somebody on the phone with me, and this is why I'm so upset, because I had somebody on the phone with me screaming at me. Got me on the phone. Got back office to say, hey, can you call us? This person wants to talk to you about. Okay, yeah, fine, no worries. So I'm on my way back from the office, traveling basically from one county to another, and they are just beating on me on the phone about how horrible this person is and how dare they and da 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 da. What do you want me to say? Would you rather have Bernie Sanders done the investigation? Would you rather have, the current governor of New York, Massachusetts, California do the investigation? Would you have felt better if it was Martin O'Malley doing the investigation? Would you say nothing? At what point do we realize that the investigation needed to happen and we needed somebody to do it? I agree. It would be better if we had both a Democrat and a Republican. And if we have to have a tech guy like Elon in there, then they all get together and they review the information and release some reports. I agree. That is the better way to do it. But that's not how they do it in the private industry. In the private industry, the head of that tech audit group reports to the CEO and gives updates. Except in this world, they're doing mass releases because they want to update America and make America feel like there's fraud. They have to fix fraud. Here's the fix. Here's where we're going, yada, yada. It's not how the federal government normally works. They use a nonprofit to review the data, or they use an in-agency group inside the federal government to review the data. They create a report, and then the senators and the House reps get it. And then the senators and House reps call the commissioners of the different agencies into the chambers of the Senate and the House, and they beat the hell out of them verbally. And they're aggressive and they're mean and they're just unbelievable. And that's how it's normally done. This was done like a private review. All right. So with that said, I'll catch you all tomorrow, where we're going to be going over things to know about the DOGE stimulus payment. Because as you know, the last time we had a full-fledged inspector general at the SSA, she got in a little bit of trouble for tampering with. I'm not saying she did. It's maybe she did, maybe she didn't. She stepped down. Okay. So bottom line is there was a lot of anger and frustration from some of the senators with her about interacting with whistleblowers. And these whistleblowers, just to be clear, okay, they're still with the SSA. And so as a result, we haven't had a proper OIG since that individual stepped down. And one of the big things that OIG person did was when the stimulus payments were paid out to the SSI people got the money in their bank account, and then boop, they were over the resource limit of the $2,000 put on them by the SSA as a restriction to receive supplemental security income. The whistleblower said, hey, we're removing benefits of people here who are just getting a stimulus check. Like, this isn't fair. So I'm going to go through with you and explain what the future of stimulus checks will likely look like, how they'll work with Social Security recipients. All right, I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful night. Attorney Walter Hnot. Please remember to like and subscribe. Please remember to take a look at this stuff yourself, make your own choices, make your own decisions. I'm trying to give you a review in the middle, not a review that's, love these people. I give all of you hugs. Please don't call me when I'm working at the firm, though, because I actually have to do real work. I have to write briefs. I have to write motions. I have to do hearings. I have to work with the homeless, or I physically go in front of them and work with them. Please don't do that again, okay? If you want me to represent you to get your disability benefits, cool. But if you're an activist trying to call me to bitch me out, okay, all you're going to get is me not being happy with you. That's all you're going to get. All right. Anyways, I will catch you guys later. You have a wonderful, wonderful night. If you do enjoy these videos, please remember I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. If you need a private session, there's a 1-hour contract below where you can hire me to look at something that's going on with your Social Security benefits, or maybe OIG is looking at you, or maybe you're doing a transition from work to disability. You want to know what to do to make it the best that you can. Also, with that said, what always helps me in the morning, get me rolling and get me going, because obviously I have to wake up early and go to bed very late. Head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida, and throw some reviews up there with some hopefully good stars. All right. I will catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will go from there. And we will catch up in the not too distant future. You have a wonderful night. Tomorrow will be about the DOGE stimulus. All right. I'll catch you later. Thank you so much. And have a beautiful week, and Thursday, Friday, and then we got the weekend. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.